How are you today?
I'm great, Joe. How are you?
I am super. So it's just the two of us here today. We don't have Shane.
No Shane. So,
but that doesn't mean Shane is not here with us. On his cup.
In his cup.
So today's topic, we decided to name it the power of inclusivity.
I think it's a great topic to bring up this time of year, particularly because in schools, this is the time of year where you're starting to kind of, well, when I was working in special education, this is the time of year we'd be coming into classrooms and start opening that conversation with teachers about children who may need support in different areas. So I think it's a great time to talk about inclusivity and including everybody in your classroom.
Exactly, and that's what it is, including everybody in your classroom. And we believe, because we have experience, so many different types of experience, yours from a teacher point of view, me from a drama teacher, a drama director. I've worked with many people in different capacities, in yoga and meditation, of all different types of levels of physical ability, learning ability, and you on so many different capacities, which we will we'll dive into in a few minutes. But we feel like the arts is such, I feel like it's such a privilege to be able to use the arts to give people of all different abilities that power.
I read like the most amazing quote the other day, and it was, without neurodiversity or without difference, there is no art. And I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I kind of like that, because it was from a neurodivergent artist who was explaining that their ability to create art comes from their viewpoint of the world being so different, and that's what makes their works so special and unique to them. And I was like, that's a great quote.
That's so cool, isn't it?
Yeah. Without neurodiversity, there is no art. I think that's a cool one.
Without neurodiversity, there is no art. So just actually on that word, neurodiverse, so who are we including in that word, or is it everybody? it's a weird term, because a lot of people's first kind of thoughts is always around, say, autism, but neurodiversity kind of is any kind of presentation that is, it's actually hard to pinpoint, but it includes things like ADHD and dyspraxia, dyslexia, dyscalculia. It might talk about children and people with Down syndrome, and it kind of encapsulates a lot of difference, but it is a difference in how we used to explain it to some of the kids, is that the brain is just wired a little bit differently and sees things differently and experiences the world differently to a neurotypical person. Yeah.
So,
did you watch that show Atypical on Netflix years ago?
No. No. I tend to get very wary when there's for those who don't know, I have ADHD, so I'm always a little bit kind of wary coming into this, because I'm like, I'm either going to relate way too much to this character and be like, oh dear, or I'm going to try and like pick holes in it. But
yeah,
I've heard really good things about it though, and yeah, is it worth a watch?
I really, really enjoyed it. I just thought it was great representation.
Okay,
but then I don't know how you would feel as a neurodivergent person. You know what I mean? Was it a great representation? But I think, is any representation good in like film and TV and cartoons?
It really does depend, I suppose, on how your outlook of your own kind of neurodivergence is. Like, there are some very stereotypical ones out there, and they can be offensive, and they can be kind of damaging in a way as well, because they're portraying it as a very set way, that this is what someone with this looks like, acts like, sounds like, likes, dislikes, when it's so like no two people with ADHD are alike. I found that out very quickly when I was teaching a class and I had a student with ADHD, and we just kept clashing. And I remember someone saying to me, it's like, but you should understand them. I was like, we have very different areas of need, and those are often clashing, but we ended up like being the best of friends by the end of the year, because there was that kind of, there is that link. And I was always very open with anybody I taught about having ADHD, because I thought that representation, like you said, is really important. And I think kids need to know when the adults in their lives do, like, obviously if you're comfortable, I'm very comfortable talking about having ADHD, but I know there's people who aren't, and I think for some kids it's really comforting for them to know, oh well, you know, my teacher, my doctor, whoever it is, they have ADHD, and look at all the stuff they're able to do, and you know, it kind of helps make them feel less of an outsider, I suppose.
And it's great to have a role model like that you can look up to, who has similar interests to you, similar habits, or whatever it might be, or not similar, but still gets you and understands you.
Yeah, and like I think the understanding is huge, because I do remember once having a child in my class who was neurodivergent and came in and was just so upset that day, and everyone around, all the support staff were like, I don't know what's wrong with them today, they're so upset, they're really agitated. And I was like, oh, is that a new jumper you're wearing? And they were like, yes. I was like, has anyone cut the tags out of that yet? And she was like, no. And it's really, 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 really annoying me. Wow. So we cut the tags out, and that was it. And it's just, you know, I thought of that because I remember getting a new school uniform and immediately hating the tags or the woolen jumper. And my mum, so I was only diagnosed as an adult, but my mum on some level knew and cut the tags out of every piece of clothing that we ever owned. So I think just having those little kind of nuggets of understanding is huge, and I think that's something that is very easy to kind of give advice to teachers. So I'd always have people coming into the classroom and being like, I have this student, and what advice would you give? I'm like, well, you know, some of those really small practical steps, which
I was reading about it, and I think what you did was you mapped. Anxiety mapping is one thing I was reading about. So you'd go through all of the different things that might have changed in that person's environment in the last half an hour, or in that since that morning. So for you were thinking, okay, the sense, maybe it's a touch, okay, maybe it was the tag, it was the tag, great. Maybe it's like the sound in a room or something it's maybe a louder sound than normal. One thing I was reading about as well is sometimes where people are sitting might be different. So that might be something for like a drama lesson, for sure. That something might come up for a teacher. Maybe they're sitting in a circle on the ground, maybe they're sitting on cushions, and maybe some people just don't really feel comfortable with that. So if someone is agitated and you can sense that they're uncomfortable in this position, just like going, okay, great, you grab your chair, you know, and that, like in yoga, for example, people are invited to take a comfortable seat, and everybody thinks that that's like with your legs crossed, but like that's not very comfortable unless you've been practicing yoga for 200 years. It doesn't even, at times I sit in it and I'm like, oh my god, my hips. But like, it's finding a comfortable seat, and that might be on the ground or with a cushion, or.
And it's interesting like that when it comes to the anxiety mapping. It comes down to routine as well. So like for drama, if a child knows, okay, everyone's getting their chairs into a circle, we must be doing drama. It's having that routine, and we spoke about it in the last episode about establishing routines early, but for the kids in the class who need that routine, and that's not even a neurodivergent thing, it could be you have a child in your class with anxiety, and that routine is huge because they need to know what to expect. So like that, we spoke about like getting into a circle for drama and getting them into that headspace. In music, you need a keyword or a buzzword. Like the visual timetables are great. We had one in every single classroom I was in, was the little kind of picture timetable. But for art, it was always, okay, take the book basket and put it under the table, and they go, grand, we're doing art. So it's all these little things you can do to kind of help them transition between different stages of their day as well. And like that, the anxiety mapping is a great way of, if you have a child who's consistently kind of upset around a particular time of day, like that, think about, okay, well, what are we doing at that point in the day? We've just come in from lunch and they're now warmer, it's the middle of the day, but they've still got their big coat on from this morning, and kind of thinking where all those tiny little things, and it can be like death by 1,000 cuts. It could be maybe didn't have the cereal they always have for breakfast that morning, and then they came in kind of in a sour mood, and then there was this, and then maths went on too long, and then someone came into the class today to do something really fun with the class, but that was still outside of routine, and those things can just build and build, and then eventually it all just like spills over. So it is about being aware of those little changes in the day as well.
And I think as well, back to what you were saying earlier, that no two people have the same kind of irritations or boundaries or limitations. So I suppose a teacher coming into a class thinking, okay, I've done this before, it might be completely different with the pupils that are in front of them, I suppose.
And even like trying to balance that in the class with two students with maybe the same on paper diagnosis, but you can have, for example, like if you're playing music in the classroom, you might have a child who has sensory issues around sound where they need to wear ear defenders because their ears are incredibly sensitive, and that could be sensitivity to particular frequencies as well. I know for a lot of kids, and I was one of these kids, low frequencies were incredibly calming.
Okay.
So like big bassy music in headphones, like it's probably known in the office that I listen to my music very loud because I will be kind of in the zone, and next of all I'll just see all the hands in front of my face like Máirín, like, oh sorry. But for another child, they might need more volume. So it's what's called a sensory seeking behavior, where they need it to be at a certain kind of pitch, a certain kind of volume, or else it's just, the best way to describe it is it just doesn't click right. You know, when you're starting your car and you're lifting up, this is for manual drivers, when you're lifting up the clutch and you're waiting for the bite. I always describe it to people as that for me in sound, there's a bite, and anything below the bite is not pleasant to listen to because you just want it to be louder, and anything above the bite is like, oh, okay, that's too loud. So it's about like trying to balance that with two kids in the class who have very different needs when it comes to something like sound is like, now it's always easier to manage the kind of sensitivity to sound because ear defenders are such a great tool to have in the room. So even if there's a child in your class who has a diagnosis but doesn't have their own set, getting a set for the classroom, getting 2 or 3 of them and just having them there is great. It can be about positioning as well. If you have a sensory seeking child, you can sit them closer to the speakers. A sensory avoidant child can sit more towards the back of the room. It is about kind of positioning them like that, but that I think is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to having a classroom where you have loads of different needs in one space and trying to accommodate all those different needs. I think
I'm just going to bring us back to that word power, okay?
Yeah.
Because when I'm listening to you, I'm like, okay, gosh, that's a lot. It's a lot to think about if you have 5 or 6 or 7, and then you have another kid whose first language isn't English, and you're trying to include them, and you're like, oh my god, I'm just not going to go to school today. And you've used up all your course days, and you're like, what am I going to do? It's 3 weeks till the midterm break, and I just can't cope. So I'm going to remind people of that word, the power of inclusivity, and give that power to the teachers, and also remember, like, give that to the pupils as well as a teacher. Like, this is the opportunity when you're doing the arts to go, right, as you said, put the books in the book basket, put them underneath the table, let's do the arts, let's bring back the power into this room, and everyone is on equal level. There's no who's good at maths, who's good at this, who's really good at languages. It's like we're all here together, we're starting fresh every time we do this drama lesson or music or art, and here we go in a circle. Let's all look at each other if we can, say your name if you can, and then give that power to the whole room, and just watch, from my point of view, watch the magic happen. Because we've been discussing a lot in DABBLEDOO about having somebody look at our content and filter out what is specifically really good for certain types of learners. And I was looking through stuff yesterday, and I was like, I have done this game, this improv, I have done all of them with people, with deaf people, non-verbal people, with wheelchair users, with Down syndrome people I work with, like every type of person, and they've never been like, oh gosh, I couldn't do that with them, because you can, and the giving yourself the power as a teacher to go, right, we're going in, we're not going to worry about it, because the student knows how they can manage it. Yeah. You know?
And I think it's very empowering for a student like that in something like the arts, where everyone is on a more equal footing, especially like thinking of your kids who might have like dyslexia or something, where they're hearing all of the kind of the language and text-based stuff like English or kind of word problems and maths, but then it's almost like a weight lifted off them. I'm just going to be drawing, painting, singing, role playing, and it can give them a chance to really just shine. Like, there's a lot of kids whose confidence was always like just so low in all the other subjects, but were some of the most brilliant artists, musicians, actors, and giving them that space to show the class, look how amazing I am at this. I'll always remember a student of mine who kind of struggled with the more academic side of things, but was one of the most engaging speakers and kind of presenters, and would get up and tell a story to the class, or would kind of teach them about something, so like a passion project, and every single child was hooked on what they were saying, and just so engaging. And if they could present any piece of academic work that way, they would just, and you could just see how much they were taking in, and how much they knew, and how much they enjoyed being up there. And like we first spotted it when reading aloud. So we were reading a class novel, and you know, we'd let them all kind of read a bit aloud, and when it got to their turn, it was the voices and the accents, and everyone was like, just let them read the next few pages, we want to listen to them. So and it was just for them and their confidence. It was huge as well.
That's it, like the whole class gave that student the power, you know, to read on, to kind of park the, we only read 3 lines each. It was like, park the rules that we've created and let's just go with it. And that's what's cool about the arts, is because you can go with the flow for a certain amount of time that you have. You can improv a little bit longer, you can play a bit longer, colour a bit longer, sing a bit longer, and having that, like the toolbox of from us, like having DABBLEDOO right there at your fingertips, is giving the power, I feel, to the teachers. And especially when it comes to, like, obviously, like, kind of my main area of expertise here is art. Is like, I always had one rule in my classroom was, you're not allowed to say I can't draw or this is bad. You had to say, I'm not too happy about the color of this tree, because it kind of refocuses them and gets them to focus on, okay, well, what don't I like about something? And so immediately jumping to, I'm not good at this, to, okay, everyone's good at it, and everything just needs improvement, because just like we're all very different in all our different ways, we all have a different art style, say, for example, and, you know, no two people's drawing styles might be the exact same, but we don't want them to be. And art in particular is a great tool for teaching that lesson about, you know, it doesn't matter, you don't have to have the exact same method as everyone else, or you could give 2 people the exact same art prompt and just see how wildly different their 2 pieces of art will be. And for kids, I think that's really empowering to be, it's very validating, because in some subjects areas, you know, you can be good at multiplication or you can struggle with it. With art, you can be like, okay, I kind of struggle with drawing people, but I am amazing at landscapes. And like, I struggle at drawing, like, I can't draw hands, and like, now people will go back to all the art lessons and notice the amount of times I've drawn characters with hands in their pockets, because I know that's not what I'm good at drawing. But you are you're good at everything.
Realistic hands is always what realistic hands. Like, there are a few hands in there, but they're very much like, this is what I've got. And I think it's great to show kids that, and the arts is a great one to show people that, like, you don't have to be the best at something. You have to just enjoy it,
play, have fun,
bring your own unique style to it.
So we've been talking about, like, neurodivergent learners, I feel, for the last kind of few minutes. So let's think about all the other, how we can make everybody feel inclusive in the classroom. I'm just thinking myself that when we went to visit a school a little while ago, there was a new student who had just arrived from another country, and they had no English whatsoever. And we had just landed in, and we were doing some workshops, and it was like, okay, how do we roll with this? And it was like, we roll with it, and we play, and we did drama, we did lovely exercises, lovely warm-ups, and especially with things like physical warm-ups, they can see, they can follow, you know. For people, I'm talking specifically about people whose language isn't first language isn't English. So that's what's great about drawing. Like, they're watching, they're seeing, they're copying. same with physical movements and games.
I think what needs to be said as well is, you know, their language, their first home language might not be English, but they are well able to communicate. They're well able to, like, through drama and mime and role play, they can communicate an idea very well. Through drawing and art, they can communicate, and they are talking to you and they are expressing things to you, and it's a great tool to kind of let them naturally absorb language as well. So like play is this universal language, and like I'd seen it 1,000 times because we had a lot of kids coming in who didn't speak English as a home language, and the kids in the class would just adapt so quickly. And you'd see it when they were playing games out in the yard, and they'd be teaching them the rules and not a word would be spoken between them. They'd mime it, and they'd do a practice run of it, and then they'd go back and they'd check and they'd like do it again. And it's that miming and role play and this kind of over dramatizing what the rules are that let the kids kind of communicate to each other. And I think we can learn a lot from watching kids do that.
They just go for it.
Absolutely.
They
There's
adapt,
no stopping
they
them.
change. They're like, oh, okay, oh, this is what we're doing. Great, brilliant.
And like that, like I think to like all my students who came in who were learning English for the first time, who absolutely adored music, and like the amount of times we listen to music that's in a language that isn't one we speak or we understand that well, but we'll still sing along to it, and we'll still get kind of caught up, and we can still enjoy it.
Yeah,
like I haven't a lick of French, but I can listen to French music and really enjoy the melodies and everything, and I'm still taking part in that experience of listening to the song. So that's where I think song singing, games, role play, miming, drawing, art, they're the perfect areas for naturally kind of including all kinds of learners, I suppose.
Giving them the power. I used to run these workshops, or this whole course called English Theatre Language course in Germany, and we would take over the year group basically for a month, and we take a class. There was 4 classes in each year. We'd take over a class for the week, and they wouldn't do any school work, just drama all day, 8 a.m. till 2 every day, with these 2 people from an English speaking country, myself and someone else. And we would just play games and learn, and they just trusted us so much that they trusted the art so much that we were like delivering these workshops through English, always through English, so that they could learn. And they were learning through playing in drama, through creating sets, creating different role plays, and by the Friday they'd made a play and they were performing in English.
That's amazing.
And their parents and families and guardians, everyone's like, I can't believe it, you know. And the like some of the stuff they would come out with was so funny. One guy was like, he stood up on the table and they always do robbery scenes, and he's like, put your hands in the air, and like it's just so funny, and like going up into like heaven, he's like, welcome in the sky. Like it's just these things that they come out with, like it was always a robbery, it was always something.
There's always something very dramatic going on.
And I'm sure teachers are going, yeah, we have that in our class every time we do your drama lesson, Joe. Like I feel you. But it's amazing what, like, by playing, you're almost getting rid of that fear of the language.
Yeah. And
getting into that playfulness, which all children have anyway, which is perfect for the arts.
Any kind of age group of children as well, like 5th and 6th class are notoriously kind of quite tricky to get really involved. But we used to run a kind of a film after school, but you could do this in classroom in drama very easily, and like I'd give them a prompt, give them 20 minutes and off they went. And seeing kids who would normally never ever interact with each other suddenly working close together and seeing what ideas the 2 of them can come up with together. We had a great one once where I told them they had to make a Western movie without there was no weapons allowed, so one of the lads had balloons, but he blew them up, and they did like a Mexican standoff with the balloons all blown up, and they let go, the balloons are flying around everywhere. But it was 2 kids from the same class who had never ever expressed interest in kind of being in the same social circle, but when they worked together on something they were both kind of interested in, they created this amazing thing together, and now they have this memory of, do you remember when we made that Western film in 5th class? Oh, that was great crack, kind of. And I think that's another kind of powerful thing about the arts is it can bring people kind of together who might not have realized that they've got such similar interests until you really start to like interrogate that with them, I suppose.
Cool.
But,
so do you think that we've covered like, oh sorry, I just wanted to say that a teacher got in touch with us actually last year to say that one of the lessons had been really useful for her. In one of our drama lessons, it was called We Belong or Belonging, something like that. But a lot of her kids had just her class had just welcomed a student from Ukraine, and she said it was really, really helpful. So if anybody is listening to this and is looking for something like that, just skip on down towards, like, I think it's about April or May, for any kind of lesson that has belonging in the title. And yeah, she just thanked me and just said thank you so much for that, because it really helped us. And it's those things like representation, what we talked about earlier, in a script of somebody who's feeling a little bit left out or slightly different. Just reading about it, hearing about it, and hearing other people speak in their voice is really helpful. And
letting them explore that situation through the arts as well. Like particularly kids who might struggle socially for any reason, having a space to practice that social interaction, or to kind of know what to say when someone is new coming into school, to kind of help them realize how they're feeling, because like, you know, a lot of kids might struggle with empathy as this kind of abstract concept, but if you get them to be in the role of this brand new students who've come in, and you can say to them, remember when we did that drama lesson, remember how you felt. I always remember we were learning about exclusion in school, and I was sent out of the room at the start of the lesson, and they did the whole lesson. Now this was probably a little bit extreme, but we were secondary school at the time, did the whole lesson without me and came back, and they're like, and how did you feel? I was like, not great, to be honest. But I never forgot that feeling, I suppose. And like that was an extreme kind of one, but drama, you know, you can do that thing of, let's pretend that, you know, you're all doing a football game, but this person's not allowed to play for whatever reason. But giving them the kind of the dramatic persona. So this isn't, oh, it's you we're not including, it's Michael Bob or another whoever character. It is. And
then you can indirectly talk about that character. How do you think they might have felt?
Exactly.
And if there is a social situation that you're trying to like tease out in your class, like go pick a story. I heard a story last night on the radio, or I was watching something on TV, or let's talk about this and dramatize it and work through it, you know, and try and get their own circumstances into a dramatic play, or even through working through something artistically as well will be helpful for everybody.
Absolutely. And I think again, returning to power, it's putting it in their hands and being like, okay, well, if it's an improv, what are you going to say? How would you help Bob who's being left out? And giving them the sense that they're coming up with the tools and the solutions themselves as well. And it's great. It is.
And I think what you just touched on there is like asking your class, like, what are all of your needs? You know, what makes you fired up? And there's like drama exercises and games at the start of the year, like, you know, what are you into? What's your favorite food? Like, these simple things can be really empowering for people to talk about it. And then you could like extend it a little bit as well, you know, like what fires you up, what like disappoints you or something, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm really disappointed when I'm not near the speaker. Maybe somebody might be able to like be very self-aware
talk
and
about
say
that.
Yeah.
I think there is this huge discourse at the moment about whether or not to tell a child that they have some sort of neurodivergence or disability or something that will make them feel different. But I think there is nothing more empowering than knowing. And I think I say this as an adult who didn't know growing up versus having children in my class who did know and were so much more able to kind of express their needs, because it wasn't, oh, I don't know why I'm so grumpy. It's, oh, actually my tag's really annoying me today. Or, do you know what, that's just too loud for me and loud noises make me feel angry. And it's having the kind of the ability to express that
and vocalize
it is probably the most empowering thing you can do for a child.
Cool.
Because they become an advocate for themselves, and you know, and they can express that kind of directly or indirectly through drawing. You know, draw about your day at school, and you know, you can kind of see what they're trying to tell you through that. Or, you know, let's do some miming and mime you getting ready in the morning, and you can see any kind of thing about their day. And like, I think it is such an empowering thing for a child to be able to express their own needs.
I was just doing a very simple, let's go around the circle, tell me one thing about yourself. And one kid was like, well, let's say his name was Bob. Hi, I'm Bob and I'm neurodivergent. And I was like, yes.
I love that.
Internally, I was like, yeah, great, cool. And, you know, because I didn't want to like counteract it with like, hey, yeah, cool, great, you know, because I just want everyone to just be nice and blended and, you know, feel equal and inclusive.
It is. It's a great kind of thing, I think, shift in mindset for kids as well, to kind of openly talk about it and express it
and not hide it.
Exactly.
And like be like struggling in that like
silently struggling thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And kids are so much more capable of understanding than I think we give them credit for. Yeah. Because like other kids in the class might be like, I think the volume's too loud for so and so. Yeah. Or so and so said in yard that they weren't feeling well, so they might be a bit upset. Yeah. And you know,
they love that. There's always a little Colleen who was like, sorry teacher, I just wanted to tell you that Máirín isn't feeling very well and I need to mind her. You're like, you don't need to mind her, you just want to sit beside her.
They're well able to mind themselves. No, but I really think they need a bit of help.
I think I might have been that person at school. I'm just going to sit here beside Máirín and mind her. But come here, how do you think we're doing? Have we talked about enough people to give teachers the power?
I think so, yeah, because it's quite easy to sit and be like, these are 5 things you can do to help your children with XYZ, but you know, everybody's different and no one knows your class better than the teacher.
Exactly.
And no one knows their needs best than someone themselves, so open that conversation up with the students. And you know, like we said, the arts is your golden ticket for
it's your toolbox.
Exploring that. Yeah, it's such an amazing toolkit to have, no matter what capacity you're in, classroom teacher, special education teacher, SNA, there's always something there that you can use to kind of
alleviate or empower, relax and rejuvenate. And include. On the sound thing earlier, I know we're coming to the end, but I wanted to say I heard about this trick that people use in retail. If they want you to like shop and buy more things, they put on certain types of music. Now probably Shane would know more about this. And if they want you to like buy quickly, it'll have like a stronger beat. They're just trying to get into our heads, you know. And you just thinking about that from a neurodivergent person, and like, what is it doing to our brains that we don't really even realize?
That I've never thought about that, because for me, a lot of the times I go into a shop, I'm like, oh, this music's terrible. Yeah. I'm like, oh, just get in and out because I don't want to hear this really bad cover of this song. But yeah, I wonder if they've done that on purpose.
Yeah, possibly. I had a pupil in one of my workshops before, and she would just stand beside the bass speaker and just like absorb it and just
once we had a Cayley band come in, and there was a guy doing the drone on the uilleann pipes, and I spotted out of the corner of the eye one of my students in the back of the room you could tell absolutely focused in on that drone and like inching himself closer and closer to the uilleann pipes to just try and get more of it as well.
Gorgeous.
And like this particular child had what's called echolalia, so will mimic sounds, and you could hear kind of very quietly was him matching pitch perfect that low drone as well. Amazing. It's great. It was
empowering.
Very empowering.
Okay, so I suppose we've come to the end of our podcast for today. We hope that we've given you some tips, some comfort, some power
to think about.
Yeah, exactly. In the last little little session. And again, like, our doors are always open. We're always open to feedback from teachers. Obviously Máirín has experience of being a teacher and I not. So if you have something you'd like to share with us, a story, something that worked really well, something that didn't work very well, we're always happy to get your feedback, and we welcome it all the time.
Absolutely. And yeah, never be afraid to get in touch with us. And even just like that bit of feedback on the lesson, if something worked really well, we'd love nothing more than to hear it. Any kind of little positive stories like that, or even like nice little anecdotes from your classes, like that story of just soaking in the bass.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again next month.
Okay, see you later.
Bye.
Slán.